I think the most important thing is that there needs to be an extraordinarily high bar of evidence for this. I think that, these accusations coming from Mike Pompeo, coming from Donald Trump, coming from Saudi Arabia, they're not exactly the most credible people in the world, and that's not to say the Iranians are. But what's key is that this is an incredibly dangerous and destabilizing development for sure. And if the Saudis or the US have evidence that Iran was behind it or Iran directly launches from their territory, they should do what's accepted under international law and take this to the United Nations and present their case and then push for whatever they want to push for. But just to make these claims and expect the international community to take it just based off them saying it is not reasonable.
Following the downing of the U.S. drone, everyone started speculating whether we're headed for war, even though the U.S. president insists that he doesn't like war, he doesn't want war with Iran. Is that where things are going at this point?
I think, Trump, it seems like they've kind of pushed back rhetorically. Trump himself, his instincts have been not to want a regional war, another war in the Middle East. John Bolton, his former national security advisor, really did, and he had a track record of pushing for war. Mike Pompeo is also very hawkish, and he wants a war. But Trump right now has really punted this to the Saudis, and he said to the Saudis, you guys basically should initiate this war and fight this war, and we'll support you, and you guys have to pay us. And the Saudis have not blamed Iran. They haven't said Iran has done this, so it's clear that they are wary of getting in a war that they would have to fight themselves and the U.S. doesn't have to fight. So I think right now this immediate kind of danger that we were in has subsided, and Trump today said that he's going to impose new sanctions, and largely that's probably going to be redundant, so we'll see where this leads.
That's the next thing I was going to ask. The U.S. is continuing its maximum pressure campaign. What impact do you think these sanctions will have? Is this bringing Iran any closer to the negotiating table, if that is, in fact, the goal of this administration?
I think this so-called maximum pressure campaign, that's really the root cause of this regional instability right now. We saw that before the Trump administration withdrew from the nuclear deal, before they imposed all these sanctions, there was no such instability in the region. The deal was working, and they chose to leave this deal and impose all these unprecedented sanctions, which above all are hurting ordinary Iranians. This policy has failed to spur new negotiations. It's failed to change Iranians' regional policies, and it's only led to this kind of escalation, this counter-escalation from Iran. So I think these new sanctions, I don't think they've kind of depleted U.S. sanctions. So what Trump needs to do if he really wants to de-escalate, if he really wants to deal, is that he shouldn't be imposing sanctions. He should be pursuing sanctions relief and easing these sanctions, getting off this failed maximum pressure policy and pursuing sincere negotiations with the Iranians.
How do you think Iran is likely to respond to this latest round of sanctions?
I think Iran, since about May, when the U.S. withdrew these kind of oil waivers for importers of Iranian oil, and they've been trying to eliminate Iranian oil exports. Like, there's all this talk about Iran targeting Saudi oil exports and destabilizing the oil market. Let's not forget that the U.S. is the first one to pursue this very unprecedented aim to reduce Iranian oil exports to zero. And that's what really set us on this trajectory, and I think the Iranians are going to continue with this counter-escalation policy unless Trump leans off maximum pressure. I don't, since May, they've been escalating in the region, and they've been gradually leaving the nuclear deal. And I think if Trump, as long as he maintains maximum pressure, Iran is going to up its own pressure, and I think we're headed towards Iran fully leaving the nuclear deal, and perhaps such attacks kind of increasing.
All right, Sina Tusi with the National Iranian American Council. Really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for that.